What is up? What is going on, everybody? I am back with another baseball video. Baseball season has officially ended. The World Series ended last night. The Texas Rangers defeated the Arizona Diamondbacks 4-1 to capture their first World Series title. And I figured with baseball ending, I should talk a little bit about that and how this World Series tied in with the Mariners. And before I get into all that, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the like button for me. Well, it's just a free, easy way to help my channel. More likes gets the videos out to more people, gets the video out to more people. It lets YouTube know you're enjoying it, so other people may enjoy it as well. I'm also going to be doing a Q&A. Probably on Monday I'll have the video up. Check out the community tabs, and you can leave a question there, or you can leave a question on this video. Anything Mariners related, Seahawks related, or even something personal if you just want to get to know me a little bit better. As long as it's not too personal, I can answer that as well. So check out either the community tab or comment down below with any questions you have for me for the Q&A. So like I said, the World Series comes to an end, and congratulations to the Texas Rangers, to the players, to their fans. If I have any Ranger fans that are subscribed, congratulations. First World Series championship in team history. Just 5 teams now that have not won a World Series: our beloved Seattle Mariners, Tampa Bay Rays, Colorado Rockies, San Diego Padres, and Milwaukee Brewers. So the Rangers are out of that group. You're gone. You have won a World Series title. And I truly mean it. Congratulations to their fan base. It's a team that spent a lot of money this offseason and the past offseason to upgrade their team. And they went out and they did it. And they won. In fact, they passed the Mariners this year. They were a 90-loss team last year, and they jumped ahead of Seattle this year. So obviously with the Rangers being in the AL West, and the Rangers doing things a little bit differently than the Mariners did. The Mariners have gone more draft, develop, trade, and the Rangers went more big on free agency to get ahead. So I feel like it does tie into the Mariners a little bit. So I wanted to talk about it and get into it and what I think, how that affects the Mariners, or how I think they should do things compared to Texas. First and foremost, before I dive into Texas, I have been asked by several people in private messages and stuff, where do I align? Am I, if you go on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, there's kind of this they call it payroll Mariners Twitter, where it's the guys that are more spend, and then there's the draft, develop, trade kind of people that are more defending Jerry DePoto, the GM, or excuse me, the president now. Justin Hollander is the general manager. So there's kind of those two groups, I guess. And people ask me which one I fall into. And the answer is simply, I do not fall into either one. I think you need a little bit of everything to win in baseball. I think you need to draft and develop. I think trades are there to be made. You should make trades. You should take from strengths and try and find ways to improve weaknesses, or take, good prospects. You can turn them into major leaguers, or if you're out of contention, you take major leaguers and turn them into prospects. I think free agency is good to supplement a roster. You think a roster is ready to go, you can get a couple pieces, put you over the top. And you need to develop the prospects you have as well so they can make an impact on the major league level. I do not subscribe to one way or the other. I am not on a side here necessarily. I think Jerry and Justin and this front office have done a lot of good things. I do. I think this organization is better than it was in the past for the Mariners. I think there's a good core of players here, but Jerry and Justin have to show that they can get this team over the top, and not just fringe playoff contention. So I think there's things they need to work on, but I don't subscribe to one train of thought or the other. It's the same thing with sabermetrics versus scouting. You need both. I've read Moneyball. I've read Scouts Honor. Like, you need a balance in your organization. So I'm not really on team anything with this. If the Mariners can get quality free agents that can help them win, great. If they can win a World Series through draft, develop, trade, great. I don't really care how the sausage is made. I just want a good product at the end of the day. And the Mariners have been a more competitive team over the last few years. It's just, they've gone from here to here. Can they get to here now? Is going to be the question. That's something Jerry, Justin, Scott, the Brain Trust are going to have to figure out. So the Texas Rangers, they're a team, like I said, it's been, if you're on Twitter, which I advise you not to be for sports, it's almost as toxic as politics sometimes. But Texas Rangers is a very hot topic because they spent a lot of money and they leapfrogged the Mariners essentially and won a World Series. And Texas did spend money. We talked about last year. They added Simeon and Seager last year, two of the premier free agents. on the market. They went out and added Jacob deGrom this offseason. Now, that didn't really come to fruition, but it also goes to show that, if you've got a good team and a good core, you can have a free agent bust or two and still be successful. And then they made moves at the trade deadline as well to get better. I will say this. I don't think Texas is a poster child for just spend money winning. For every team that spends money and wins, there's a Texas, there's also a Padres and a Mets. Teams that spent a lot of money that failed. The Mets did recoup some prospects for Verlander and Scherzer, but you can't not call the Mets season a failure. And the Padres as well. Padres spent a lot of money. They had to borrow $50 million to get out of debts this year and stuff, which is hilarious that a major league team could just borrow $50 million. I'd like to get some of that, but it is what it is. What I think Texas is more of a poster child for is what I talked about a few minutes ago. It's winning through every avenue that's available to you. They spent in free agency, and they did very well in free agency. They've done a nice job with trades. They've added Nathaniel Lowe, Mitch Garver. I'm probably missing some in there as well. They've done some good development with Adolis Garcia. Oh, Jonah Heim was a trade. And then developing some of these guys like Adolis Garcia, developing Jonah Heim. Josh Young, a prospect. There's Evan Carter. So they've done all three. Mitch Garver, another trade. I don't know if I mentioned it already. But so to me, what Texas has done is they've done what I talked about at the beginning of this video. They've won through all avenues. It wasn't just free agency signings. Remember, Seager and Simeon were on that team last year that lost 90 games. It's signing the free agents, developing good young talent, making the right moves and trades, and putting it all together. I think that's the recipe to me that the Rangers showed in this offseason and in this postseason. It's not just spending money. That's not just what the Rangers did. They developed a lot of their young talent. They still have a great farm system. They were willing to deal some prospects from that farm system to get better, which is fine. I'm all totally fine with that. And they did it through all three avenues. So I don't think they're necessarily just a poster child for spend, because for every spend that you have with the Rangers, you've got the Mets and the Padres. It's about taking all three of those aspects and making a good team out of that. So I think that's, to me, where the Rangers would be more of a poster child for, more than just spending a ton of money in free agency. And listen, I'm all for the Mariners if they can add in free agency doing it. But for every Simeon and Seager, there are your Chris Bryants and Trevor Stories of the world as well. So you do have to do your due diligence with free agency. If the Mariners would have signed one of those guys, we'd be hamstrung with those contracts right now. It would be trying to find a spot for those guys to play. Would be brutal with their contracts. So you've got to be smart with it. So the Rangers, I think, did a good job of really utilizing all three areas of how you can build a team, or 3, 4, whatever, 5, whatever you want to go with, and doing that. So I think that's more what the Rangers, have shown through this last offseason and winning. And again, congratulations to them and their fan base. Congrats to the Arizona Diamondbacks as well on truly an incredible run. 84 wins to get to the postseason, and then to make that run, absolutely incredible. Fun story to root for. I live in Arizona, so it was cool to follow, and I was rooting for them for that reason, and for Paul Sewald. It would have been cool to see Paul get a World Series ring. So I was pulling for the Diamondbacks, but it's all good. I do think, as we look at this World Series, I think both teams are also prime examples of why you don't have to be hot going into the postseason to win. I was talking at the end of the year that I was still hoping the Mariners got the postseason despite the September struggles. And I had a lot of people comment that, well, who cares if they get in? They're not going to do anything anyways. Well, you just saw two teams that did not play great ball down the stretch, at least for the I'm not quite as sure about the Diamondbacks. I know they were swept in their final series at home against Houston. And remember, Texas had a huge drop where they actually dropped out of the playoffs for a little bit. Towards the end of the season, everyone kind of thought they were going to be the odd team out, and Seattle and Houston were going to get in. And then Texas kind of clawed their way back. They didn't play amazing, but they played better as the year wound down, and they ended up getting in as a wild card. But neither of these teams were playing their best ball, but both were able to go on runs in the postseason. Only reason I bring that up is you don't have to be hot going into the postseason to succeed in the postseason. Now, I think we'd all prefer our teams to go in playing good ball. I think that would be better. You'd like to have your team going in on a winning note. but you do not have to be red hot going into the postseason. So I just want to point that out, because the notion that, let's say the Mariners did get in. Let's say they won an extra game somewhere and snuck in with kind of a rough September. The notion that they couldn't go on a run because they were struggling in September, to me, is just not true. And that's why I was still absolutely all for trying to get this team in the postseason, because you never know. You never know what can happen in the playoffs when you get there. So I think these two teams kind of prove you don't have to be red hot going in to have success. And again, that's not meant as an insult to the teams. They did. It's why the whole season matters, right? It's why games in April and May matter just as much as ones in September, because you can sometimes get those wins back there, and it get, like Texas, for example, they gave themselves enough cushion where when they hit that slide, it didn't knock them completely out of the playoffs, essentially. You know, the Mariners, the other way, they had that huge August. Had they just played a little bit better before that, maybe they do end up getting in. So, it is what it is. We can't go back and change what happened. But I do think these two teams represent that you don't have to be red hot going in to the postseason. Last thing I want to talk about in regards to the World Series is the Paul Sewald trade. I just want to touch on it a little bit, because it was another area where there seemed to be some controversy. You saw some prominent Seattle sports people kind of tweet out or mention or write articles about how much the Mariners missed Paul Sewald, about how Paul was a leader in the clubhouse and someone that they should have held on to for the stretch run. If you guys have watched my videos, you know I liked the Paul Sewald trade. I thought the Mariners got really good value for it. I thought they got a huge upgrade at second base and Josh Rojas. I thought they got a good outfielder in Dom Canzone, who I'll admit Canzone struggled a little bit more than I thought he would. And you have a legitimate second base prospect coming up now in Ryan Bliss, who is not crazy not out of the complete realm of possibility. He could be your opening day second baseman next year. Not saying he will be, but it is definitely possible. So I just want to kind of talk about that trade a little bit in regards to what we saw in the postseason. First and foremost, I do not deny for a second that Paul Sewald was a leader in the clubhouse. Not at all. And I don't dismiss anybody. If your take is that, hey, they should have kept Sewald because he's a leader and a good presence, I do not dismiss that take at all. I think those guys are valuable. I think it's good to have leaders in the clubhouse, guys, veterans that guys can kind of rally around, and there's that comfort level. I think Carlos Santana was a big part of the Mariners run in 2022. I think his value goes beyond the numbers with what he was able to bring. I think Paul Sewald could have that kind of impact as well. But I will point out, with that said, that the Mariners went 21-5 after the Paul Sewald trade. So if it affected the clubhouse that much, then they wouldn't have won 21 out of their next 26 right after the trade. So I think it's kind of unfair to say that move tore up the clubhouse, because it clearly didn't. And then when they struggled in September, it was more the offense and the starting pitching. That the offense was so inconsistent, the starting pitching struggled a little bit down the stretch more than the bullpen. I know Andres Munoz had a couple blown saves. I know he did. I think he had two where they had the lead, the White Sox and the Royals. They won one of those games anyways, the Royals game, so it didn't even matter. And yeah, they blew the White Sox game. That stunk. Relievers blow saves. Guess what? Our beloved Paul Sewald blew saves. He blew his first save attempt in Arizona. He blew game one of the World Series, and he struggled last night in a game that was 1-0. I love Paul. This is not meant to be a bash Paul segment here, but relievers are volatile. They have those blowups. You got the best closers in baseball are going to blow probably 2 to 4 saves a season. Mariano Rivera blew saves. Mariano Rivera blew a save in Game 7 of the World Series. It happens. There's just nothing you can really do about that. So I do not think that the Paul Sewald trade hurt the Mariners all that much. And then you also have to remember the value they got from Josh Rojas, upgrading from Colton Wong to Rojas at second base, was tremendous. Rojas gave this team 1.4 F4 in his time in a Seattle Mariners uniform, which was a lot more than the F4 that Paul Sewald gave the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, relievers are never going to accumulate a ton of WAR. Even, Paul Sewald probably pitched, 16, 17 innings in Arizona. It's hard to accumulate a lot of value over a short period of time, but that's one of the reasons why you can trade relievers and why I'm normally on board with trading relievers. They're easier to fill. It's not as valuable. I'm not saying a bullpen can't be the backbone of a team. It's very important. You want to have a solid bullpen, but you can kind of funnel through guys. I mean, even Paul Sewald himself was, a cast-off that they picked up, a failed starter, a failed long reliever with the New York Mets that they were able to convert into a really good reliever. And even this year, they were able to pick up some guys kind of off the street that did a solid job. Guys like Topa, Spire, Saucedo, even Trent Thornton to an extent. Were all guys that stepped in and did a pretty good job. So I get it. If you don't like the Paul Sewald trade, I know a couple people have said like they liked it, but it would maybe been better in the offseason to make a move like that. I think there's fair arguments there. I don't think it's just completely black and white. And I get the clubhouse chemistry part of it. But then again, I'll go to like they were winning tons of games right after. And you can say that's the schedule, but sure, most good teams beat up on bad teams. That's what you want to do in sports. And then again, even if it was bad teams, it clearly wasn't affecting the clubhouse all that much, at least from my point of view. Again, you can disagree with that. I do think it's fair to debate it 100%. That's why I brought it up here. But I just want to give my take on it now that has passed. And I do think that the Diamondbacks, are happy with that trade too. I think trades, so I was going to say too, like trades can be win-wins on both sides. I think both teams are going to be fairly happy with the deals when it's all said and done. I think the Mariners have a chance to get more long-term value out of it. But the Diamondbacks were a couple wins away from a World Series championship, which was their goal when you acquire a reliever like Paul Sewald. So, that's my take on that. Last thing I'll talk about a little bit is, as the offseason's coming up here for the Seattle Mariners, truthfully, the offseason begins today. You can make trades, you can re-sign your own players that are free agents and everything like that. And then I think November 6th or 8th, I'm not sure, is when you can start signing players from other organizations as free agents, which is really what we're going to be focused on. I'm going to have a profile up for a few players here starting tomorrow. I'm going to dive into some free agents that I think could be interesting fits for the Seattle Mariners, why I think they're good fits, why I think they'd be upgrades, and I'll get into all that. Some of the players might not be the super crazy names you're expecting, but there are still, lower tier free agents that can help this team get better, and hopefully they can make some moves to get this team over the top. So there's a few names. If you haven't seen yet, I had five free agents I could see the Mariners being interested in. Again, not super sexy names, but guys that I do think could give this team a big boost if they were to sign in Seattle. And last take on it, I don't think the Mariners are far away. I don't. I know a lot of people think that this team is way behind. I think if you put Texas, Houston, and Seattle in a blender and shook it up and replayed this last season and 100 times, I think each team probably wins the division 33 times. I really do. I think they are neck and neck with these teams. I think Seattle, if they get in, could absolutely go on a run similar to what the Rangers did. I don't think it's crazy. There's people that would have told you it was crazy if you said Texas was going to go on a run before the postseason. So I don't think they are that far behind. I think they have some things in front of them that they can do. I think they have some clear and obvious areas of need they need to address. I think they can do it through free agency. I think you can look at maybe draft development, guys like a Ryan Bliss coming up, being an impact guy. And there's going to be some trades as well that are going to be available to this team. And we know Jerry's going to be active on the trade market. So I do think there's move. I don't think they need to stand pat. I'm not saying they're close, don't do anything. But I do think there's moves they can make to, get over the top and win this division. I don't think it's far-fetched. They were, a game 2 back this year? They were leading it with 20 games to go. So I do think they are right there. So that's my take on it. That's kind of my take on the World Series. A very interesting World Series matchup. It was cool to see two teams that aren't, Yankees, Dodgers, Braves, kind of the Red Sox, Astros. The teams have just been there constantly the last few years. It was nice to see some new faces in the World Series. So I enjoyed it. I would have liked to seen it go 7 to be a little more competitive. But it is what it is, and baseball is officially over. So like I said, remember to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button for more Mariners, Seahawks content. Remember to get your questions in for the Q&A if there's anything. I appreciate your guys' questions because you guys make me think of things sometimes that I don't even think of. So I really appreciate if you guys can go to that community tab and leave your questions in there or drop them, like I said, in the comments down below. I will have my off-season video starting tomorrow or tomorrow or Saturday with some free agent previews and projections and stuff like that of some guys I could see the Mariners being interested in. So thank you, everybody, for watching. If you made it this far, have a great afternoon, evening, and as always, go Mariners. Peace.